Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is someone I count as a dear friend, someone I admire tremendously, someone who was the subject of my book, Your Mark on the World. His name is Rabbi Zippel. He is the leader of the Chabad Lubavitch of Utah. I'm sure I butchered that. Please forgive me, Rabbi.
Devin.
As well as what we wrote about in the book was his work with Project Heart. Rabbi, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Devin. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Well, Rabbi, I want to start with the problem that Project Heart has been working for more than 20 years now to address. But I love your story of how this came to be. Tell us a little bit about your first discovery of finding the young men, young women in the schools in Utah.
So I moved with my wife and at that time baby son to Utah in July of 1992 to start Chabad Lubavitch of Utah, which was going to be the Utah branch of the world's largest Jewish outreach organization called Chabad Lubavitch. We deal primarily with the unaffiliated. And so I moved here in July of 92, and a few months later, December of 92 to be precise, the holiday of Hanukkah was approaching, and I received a telephone call from a Jewish man that lived in the greater LA area, informing me that he had heard the story that Chabad Lubavitch had opened in the state of Utah, and he was letting me know that he had a 15-year-old Jewish boy, his own son, that was in a school in Provo, Utah, and as Hanukkah was approaching, he wanted his son to be able to celebrate Hanukkah. It really struck me as odd as why would a 15-year-old Jewish boy from the greater LA area be in school in Provo, Utah, but I understood right away that it was somewhat of a delicate situation. Didn't want to push and prod too much. So I just took the kids' information and I headed out to Provo, to a place called Discovery Academy in Provo, Utah, where incidentally I was still yesterday, 23 years later. And I encountered this young man whose name was Eric, and we celebrated a holiday and we struck up a conversation. And in the conversation, he told me that he had been sent by his parents because of some struggles that he was experiencing pertaining to his behavior, out of control behavior, abuse of drugs and alcohol and so on and so forth, which precluded him from living in a conventional home environment in the LA area. And just as I was about to leave the school, I just happened to mention to him, I said, "Eric, are you the only Jewish boy here?" And he says, "Rabbi, come on, let me introduce you to some more kids." And sure enough, to introduce me to a whole bunch of boys and girls, turns out that there was a significant amount of Jewish kids at that time, 23 years ago, in Provo, Utah. And I started delving into this idea a little bit of these residential treatment centers, later also to discover that there is what we call wilderness therapy programs. And that's when I started Project Heart. Right now, we just refer to it as Project Heart without really focusing on the initials. But HEART is really the acronym for Hebrew Education for At-Risk Teens. And for the past 23 years, I spend almost every day, literally every day, interacting with hundreds of Jewish teens that are here in the greater area of Salt Lake and beyond throughout the state of Utah for therapeutic reasons. And I interact with them, their families, and I've seen incredible success in this work.
Rabbi, what is it about Utah that draws these kids from around the country? What's the dynamic? What's the legal situation? What drives this?
Well, first and foremost, the legal situation is that these treatment centers do exist outside of Utah as well, like on the East Coast, in places like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and so on and so forth. But on the East Coast, these centers require the young man's or the young woman's consent into being placed into a residential treatment center, and it is highly unlikely for a young boy or girl that is totally out of control in terms of how they're living their lives, that they're going to willfully check themselves into a therapeutic residential treatment center. Whereas here in Utah, the legislators saw the tremendous influence, the tremendous impact that this has on the young men and women and their families. And to be perfectly frank with you, the impact it has on the Utah economy, that they have legalized taking these boys and girls, these kids, to these treatment centers without requiring their consent, provided that they are under the age of 18. So as a result of it, there are many kids being taken here by a transportation service or by their parents or family members that come here and literally in the process discover how much they can actually enhance their quality of their lives.
Tell us a little bit about the role that you play, because clearly you're making a difference in the lives of these kids. What are you doing with them that influences them for good?
I provide the role of being a rabbinical, I would say, role model, or a person that is there for them, reminding them one by one, without exception, that although they may feel that they have been rejected by their parents, by the educational system, by their friends, and so on and so forth, because of poor choices that they may have chosen to do for themselves, I'm here to remind them that there is an omnipotent God that unconditionally loves them, and I am there for them to remind them of that, and to remind them that they can still be actively Jewish and engage with their heritage, and with their religion, and with their culture, and with their identity, while being in Utah for therapeutic reasons.
As you minister to them, as you lead them, as you guide them, as you coach them, as you walk with them, what changes do you see, and what impact do you think your work has on them?
The one word, or rather two words, that I would really like to focus on, that I see more and more and more lacking in youth today, not only in Jewish youth, but in youth in general, are the words inherent worth. And I ask kids regularly, do you feel that you have an inherent worth? And then the next word is meaning and purpose. Is there a meaning and purpose to you? Do you feel like you have any inherent worth? Now, inherent worth is not something that is measured by your scholastic performance, by the marks you get, by your interaction with your family. Inherent worth is something that is a lot deeper than that. It goes all the way down into your core values, into your soul, into your mission that you are here on earth to carry out. And I find it staggering, Devin, the amount of kids that answer to me in a very clueless way. Inherent worth? No way. There's no way that somebody like me, who has been abusing drugs and alcohol, has been acting in many cases sexually out of control. There's no way that somebody like me actually has inherent worth. And that's where I come into the picture and want to remind them, and do remind them, that they were not created randomly, sort of by accident. The fact that God chose it to bring them into creation and bring them into this world, that in and of itself is a statement and a reminder to each and one of them that they actually do have inherent worth, they do have meaning and purpose, and that I am there throughout the entire stay here in Utah to help them discover their inherent worth, meaning, and purpose.
After you've worked with them for a time, do you actually see a change? Do you see a difference?
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Talking about meaning and purpose and inherent worth, I currently, as we speak, have 4 young Jewish men from the East Coast, from Florida, from New Jersey, from different places on the East Coast that are currently active in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Force, because primarily they have discovered that they have an inherent worth. They did discover their meaning and purpose, and they want to act as advocates, as defenders of the Jewish people in our homeland of Israel, and they have therefore chosen to volunteer in the Israeli Defense Force, although they are American citizens, and the draft would not apply to them.
That's really an inspiring example. I imagine that that is at some sacrifice, but that they will also further develop character in that experience as well. Really amazing.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but actually one of my all-time favorites is actually a young man by the name of Akiva, who actually came here to Utah about 18 years ago in 1997 as a big sort of out of control Israeli teenager. They came here to Utah, spent here about 18 months. I worked very closely with him. And today, 15 years later, I'm still in touch with him. He's, thank God, a happily married man living in Israel and actually having graduated university as a social worker. And he himself has dedicated his life into becoming a therapist and helping at-risk youth in his own home country of Israel. I love that.
That is an inspiring story. You know, you are an inspiration. You are a role model. You are really, literally a hero to parents whose kids have been through your program and whose lives have been changed. Who do you look up to for inspiration? I'm humbled by your comment. Who do you look up to for inspiration, Rabbi?
I look up to what is known as the Rebbe. Spelled not rabbi, I am a rabbi. The Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson of saintly memory, was the grand rabbi, the grand Rebbe of Lubavitch, who is single-handedly instrumental for setting up over 4,000 centers, just like Chabad Lubavitch of Utah, all over the world. And I'm just but one of over 4,000 rabbis and rebbitzin. Rebbitzin is the Jewish equivalent of spouse of a rabbi or a female educator, female leader. And it is without a doubt that when the Rebbe, on the last day in his life, when he enjoyed good health, on March the 1st, 1992, and he gave me the blessing and the mandate to move here to Utah, where I've been for the past 23 years with my family, it is without a doubt that the Rebbe had it in his vision to reach out, to be there, to reach out, and to love each and every one of these young men and women alongside with their families and help them discover the gem that dwells within themselves.
That's really amazing. Now, you really have made such a tremendous difference in Utah that your assignment, your blessing from the Rebbe to come here really is moving, and I can see why you admire, look up, and respect him as we respect you. Now, as you think about your success, and you've had tremendous success, I wonder why do you do what you do? I especially look at the tremendous work you do with these young people all around the state of Utah. I can't imagine how many miles you put on your car. Why do you do it?
Well, talking about inherent worth and mission or meaning and purpose, I'd like to use a metaphor, Devin. And the metaphor that I'd like to use is that of diamonds or gems in the rough. When people see these beautiful rings or pieces of jewelry on women's or man's fingers, necks, wrists, and so on and so forth, we see a diamond shining at its best. But there's very few of us who actually realize that that diamond did not come out looking the way it does now. It was a diamond in the rough. And what I am reminded on a daily basis is that teenagers today, because of the effect and the influence of today's culture, are diamonds in the rough. They are diamonds. They have it within them. We don't have to create a diamond within them. It is there, but it is covered by great layers of dust, of inactivity, of confusion, of lack of direction, meaning, and purpose. And I have felt it and continue to feel it on a daily basis, that it is my life's mission, goal, mandate, and purpose to reach out to as many of these young men and women and help them through immense and abundant love get rid of all this undesirable surface that prevents the gem within them to shine, and allow them and empower them and guide them to discover the gem within.
That's so moving. I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's the very, very basic lessons, sort of Rebbe 101 lesson that the Rebbe has entrusted us and educated us. When I say us, I mean the disciple of his.
Yeah. Well, Rabbi, yesterday you completed a 24-hour crowdfunding effort to support your work. Incredibly successful. I think you set a goal of $180,000, which in 24 hours would be huge. How much did you end up raising at the end?
I ended up raising actually $217,000, thanks to some very generous matchers here in Utah. Scott Anderson from Zions Bank, Gail Miller from the Miller Group of Companies, Ambassador John Price, and parents of former students from Project Heart. But really the great support goes to people like you, Devin, who contribute online as well, and the many parents, families, friends of kids that were here that have seen the success of this work and that have willfully contributed. And I'm truly humbled by this outpouring of love, generosity, and kindness. And it once again reminds me how important the work that I carry out on a daily basis is.
Well, I'm so glad that people were able to support you, and especially appreciate those big matchers who gave such tremendous leverage to the donations that individuals made yesterday. And that really is inspiring. And it really is, I think, a credit to you and the work that you're doing, that you were able to raise so much money so quickly. And I congratulate you for that.
Thank you very much, Devin. I want to congratulate you and thank you for the article that you wrote in the book, Your Mark on the World. If people haven't read it, I highly encourage them. It just so happens that my chapter in the book is chapter 3. And if anybody wants to read it, by all means, I highly encourage it, and I congratulate you on that.
Well, thank you. It has been a life-changing experience for me to have become an author, and inspired by you and the others in the book. I have tried to really follow your lead, follow your example. And of course, I fail to live up to that standard, but I continue to aspire to it. So thank you very much. Well, listen, Rabbi, tell people how they can connect with you today and to learn more about your work and to continue to support it financially.
I would encourage people, if they'd like to know more about my work, to please email me. My address is Rabbi, pretty simple to remember, R-A-B-B as boy, I, at jewishutah.com, Rabbi at jewishutah.com. If people are able to support our work, they can go to our website, which is www.jewishutah.com/donate, where they can donate online. And I want to thank everyone in advance for doing so. If people want to know more specifically about Project Heart and see some testimonials, videos, letters, a list of schools that I visit, which is not really complete, but it gives a good idea. It is www.jewishutah.com. chabad.com/heart, HEART.
Fantastic. Rabbi, again, thank you very much for joining us today, and we wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
My pleasure, Devin. Thank you very much for this interview. Let us resolve together to make it our mandate and our goal and mission to make this world one step better and more godly than how we found it.
No, absolutely agreed. Let's do some good.